North Korea is hardly noticeable on the map in the grand scheme of things. At least 2,056 nuclear tests have taken place in the world between America's first test in 1945 and North Korea's most recent detonation in 2017. The United States and the Soviet Union conducted nearly 85% of these. But the other three recognized nuclear powers, the United Kingdom, France, and China, have also carried out a sizable portion of their own research. There is strong evidence that Israel tested some nuclear weapons covertly in South Africa in 1979, despite the fact that it has never publicly test-fired a nuclear weapon. India carried out a peaceful nuclear explosion in 1974, and 5 additional nuclear explosions in May 1998. Pakistan responded later in the same month with 6 nuclear tests on 2 separate days. With that in mind, let's have a look at the different nuclear weapon testings done till now by different countries. Number 1. The United States. Both the first and most nuclear weapons tests in history have been carried out by the United States. On July 16, 1945, Washington famously carried out its first nuclear test, the Trinity, which had a yield of 20 kilotons in the desert of New Mexico, 20,000 tons of TNT equivalent. America was only the beginning. The United States performed 1,030 nuclear tests between 1945 and 1992. The largest one occurred on March 1, 1954, at the Marshall Islands, Bikini Atoll, just 9 years after the Trinity test. After the United States conducted its first hydrogen bomb test in 1952, the Castle Bravo design was intended to be the first deliverable thermonuclear weapon. Castle Bravo became a severe disaster. The resultant blast was an incredible 15 megatons, whereas the designers had anticipated a yield in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 megatons. That is roughly 1,000 times greater than the bombs dropped on Japan during World War II. As a result, the fallout quickly became a global catastrophe for the United States, with some sources estimating that the radiation spread over an area of about 7,000 square miles. Most significantly, the Japanese fishing vessel Lucky Dragon No. 5 happened to be nearby, and 23 of its crew members would soon pass away from radiation poisoning. Number 2. Soviet Union. Neither the first nor the most nuclear tests were carried out by the Soviet Union. In total, 715 tests were overseen by the Soviet Union, compared to the 1,030 by the United States. Moscow did surpass Washington in one area: the scale of its tests. In fact, the Soviet Union was responsible for all 5 of the largest nuclear explosions in history. Tsar Bomba is the largest of all. A specifically modified Tu-95 bomber took off on October 30, 1961, carrying a bomb that measured 26 feet long by 7 feet wide and weighed 27 tons. Tsar Bomba was dropped from the bomber and floated to the ground on a 1-ton parachute before exploding 13,000 feet in the air. A yield of 57 megatons was generated by the explosion, making it 10 times more powerful than all the munitions used during World War II. The flash could be seen from 1,000 kilometers away, according to a later BBC report. The bomb's mushroom cloud rose to a height of 64 kilometers, and its cap continued to extend until it was nearly 100 kilometers long. Number 3. Britain. On October 3, 1952, the United Kingdom launched its first atomic bomb, becoming the 3rd nation to do so. The first of the lesser nuclear powers, all of which differed significantly from the superpowers in their nuclear behavior, was Britain. For starters, compared to the United States or the Soviet Union, Britain and the other nations, France, China, India, Pakistan, and Israel, had much smaller arsenals. The secondary nuclear powers also didn't test as many nuclear weapons as Moscow and Washington did. In contrast, between 1952 and 1991, Britain carried out 45 nuclear tests. London conducted its first independent nuclear device tests. It began conducting joint nuclear tests with the United States in 1961. Washington refused to work with the UK on the majority of nuclear matters until the country proved it could produce hydrogen weapons. In 1957, London began testing thermonuclear bombs, but the initial designs didn't yield what was anticipated. The first successful hydrogen bomb test took place in November 1957, but Grapple Y, which took place in November 1958, turned out to be Britain's largest thermonuclear bomb test. A yield of 3 megatons was produced. Number 4. France. In a nuclear weapon test on February 13, 1960, France became the 4th country to do so. Britain and France had much more in common when it came to nuclear behavior. France did not establish as close of ties with the United States in the nuclear sphere, which was where it differed from England. Finally, between 1960 and 1996, France conducted 210 nuclear tests. Beijing actually detonated a hydrogen bomb before Paris, which greatly angered Charles de Gaulle, despite Beijing having joined the atomic club before China. France's first hydrogen bomb test, in contrast to Britain, was successful. France detonated its first two-stage thermonuclear device on August 24, 1968. Codenamed Canopus, this initial thermonuclear test was also France's largest known explosion, at 2.6 megatons, according to Robert S. Norris. Number 5. China. On October 16, 1964, China defied Western nuclear hegemony by detonating an atomic bomb at the Lop Nur test site. Beijing claimed to have conducted a thermonuclear test on June 17, 1967, less than 3 years later. This was the quickest any nation had gone from detonating its first atomic bomb to detonating its first hydrogen bomb, which had a yield of 3.3 megatons. China has never tested nuclear weapons much higher than that. The sole exception occurred in 1976, when China detonated a 4 megaton yield air-dropped bomb. Between 1964 and 1996, Beijing conducted a total of 45 nuclear tests. And finally, at number 6, North Korea. Naturally, North Korea, which detonated its first nuclear weapon in 2006, is the newest member of the nuclear club. The yield from its first experiment was only 2 kilotons at most. The yield of Pyongyang's first 4 nuclear tests was not 20 kilotons, but the yield of its 5th test may have reached 25 kilotons. Undoubtedly, its most potent nuclear test was its most recent one. There is still debate over the exact yield. Estimates range from 100 to 250 kilotons. Additionally, there are conflicting views on whether North Korea tested a boosted fission bomb rather than a hydrogen bomb, as Pyongyang claims. So that's the end of the video. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and press the notification bell so you never miss out on our next videos. Until the next video, take care.